Lisa Coleman, who is a very dynamic speaker and has been here on this stage, has this thing about before you give a presentation that you should really plant yourself and put your hands on your hips and take a deep breath and survey the audience. And as I'm doing this, I realize that that probably works for her because she is very tall and very thin. And the only thing I am hearing in my head right now is, I'm a little teapot, short and stout. So I think I'm going to do this, and I'm going to say welcome, and thank you for being with us here today. I am Beata Baker. I am a writer and an editor with my own company, Ursa Minor Media, and what we do is we specialize in business theater content, creation, and also production support. And I'm thrilled that you came out on this hot and sunny day to be here with us. I have this wonderful writer friend, Stephanie Kalis, my friend Stevie. And because she's such a terrific writer, even her Christmas letters are something special. They're not that usual kind of miserable litany of every single thing that the family did every day last year. They're creative and they're lively. And one year, not long ago, the letter was this beautiful essay all about how the family had taken their dog, which was older and a rescue, through an agility training course. There was nothing wrong with the dog. They just wanted to see if you could literally teach an old dog new tricks. And as it happened, you can. The dog did great. She jumped over things that she was supposed to. She avoided things she was supposed to. She learned patterns and mazes. And best of all, she was able to take all of that knowledge that she had learned in the course and bring it with her into her daily life. Now, she had always been a great dog, just fantastic, but the agility training made her even better. So my friend Stevie took this as a revelation, and that year, her Christmas letter was all about her wanting to let agility enter her life, every phase of her life. And I thought that was really beautiful, and it really struck me. And so ever since then, I've been on a bit of a mission on the meaning and the acquiring of agility in daily life, and particularly in business dealings. Did I do this right? Look at some of these definitions of agility. The ready ability of moving with easy grace. Nimbleness. The talent to think and draw conclusions quickly. Intellectual acuity, having resourceful and adaptable nature. Now, aren't these wonderful characteristics? I mean, you would think that any business person would really want that as a set of personal goals or things that they're looking for in their employees, but that's not always necessarily the case. I mean, certainly agility is prized in the sports world, physical agility especially. And right now, the tech world has really kind of commandeered agile computing. It's kind of the go-to phrase that they're using a lot. But that's not really about corporate culture. It's more about software and systems. Now, employers and clients are not always seeking agility in their people. They're seeking for you to fill one particular slot and to stay in that slot until they see fit to move you elsewhere. Often, it's a rigid style rather than an agile. And one of the reasons that agile tends to be so popular is because agile means predictable. It means lack of change. It's kind of human nature to hate change. We like where we are, we get comfortable, we auger in. Right also means that you're kept in your place. I mean, maybe you've been told to not wander outside of your department, or above your level, or beyond your pay grade. But as soon as we enter the working world, we really need agility as a survivor tool, because from the very beginning, our career arcs do not go in that direct and upward motion that we think they're going to go in. Things start to change right away. Now, as an example, think of what you wanted to be when you grew up, when you were a little kid. I'm pretty sure that almost none of us here are doing that thing today. Because if we were, this would be a room full of ballerinas and astronauts and cowgirls and quite possibly dinosaurs. Now, I'm actually very fortunate that I got to do I got to live out my childhood dream for the first half of my career. I was bitten by the acting bug when I was 5 years old, and my parents took me to a local high school production of Annie, Get Your Gun. And at one point, Annie, who was a redhead, was wearing this white satin outfit with green sequins and a white cowgirl hat and white leather boots with green trim. My brain exploded. I mean, I had never seen anything as wonderful. And not only did she get to wear that outfit, but she got to sing and dance, and this auditorium full of happy people were applauding, and they stood up. They stood up at the end. I mean, that was it for me. And I decided, I don't know what this is, but I've got to figure out a way how to do it. And I did. I went to drama school, and I went to New York, and I lived and worked there, and then I moved to the Seattle market and then lived and worked here. I acted for decades, and I absolutely loved it. But auditions started drying up right around the time I hit 40. Now, I happened to be lucky. I wrote all throughout my acting career. I wrote material for myself, and I wrote material for others. So I was actually able to transition into a writing life, in a career. Things change. Outside forces enter in, the ones you wouldn't even think about. I remember when an entire calendar year of events and presentations that were booked for our company just disappeared after the tragedy of 9/11. My husband got cancer. Not only could neither of us work for 6 months, but we entered this cold, horrible fog out of which I didn't know if we would ever emerge. And I'm happy to say he's doing great, and he's sitting right there. So things change. And I know that I was better equipped to accept all of these challenges and to kind of go with the flow because I had been consciously participating in an agility practice. And over the years, I actually did come to realize that it is like a practice. It's very much like yoga. Agility is a way of being. Now, it's more than just a character trait like optimism. And it's more than just a set of survival skill tools like resiliency. Although those two things certainly figure in. Agility really is a kind of total mind, body, spirit thing. And it's very much grounded in openness. Now, as a student of agility, I've been incorporating 4 simple steps into my daily life. And like a physical workout, these steps happen to include a warm-up, working your muscles, getting your heart beating faster, and stretching. And so I'm just going to briefly go through these steps with you today, and maybe there'll be something that will resonate with you, and you'll start a little agility practice of your own. Okay, warming up. The first way to start getting ready to live an agility practice is to warm up, and that means taking your inventory. And by that, I mean go back and list of all of your assets and all of your talents. Now, it's like making a pros and cons list when you're trying to make a decision about something difficult, except this is all pros. It's just good stuff. I guarantee you your collective past has had a positive impact on your work life, maybe without you even knowing it. I actually had an insight into this a few years ago when I was a senior editor and head writer for a company called Trend West Resorts. And it was my responsibility to put out a magazine every month. And of course, on press day, we were writing and editing right up until the last minute, and things were always pretty crazy. And one year, my editor-in-chief, when things had been pretty nuts, the day we went to press, she asked me why it was that I never freaked out on press day. And without even stopping to think about it, I said, the curtain goes up at 8 o'clock every night. I mean, I'd been an actor for the first half of my career. And the actor's maxim of the show must go on was probably embedded in my DNA at that point. So this was nothing. You know, I'd been on stage in front of drunks. I'd been on stage with drunks. I had gone on with food poisoning and had to hurl into a bucket in the wings in between my scenes. So compared to that, swapping out ad copy at the last minute, that was nothing. But I hadn't really thought about it in that manner. I had never really realized how much my acting life was informing and aiding my writing and my editing life. So that night, I went home and I took my inventory. I went all the way back to my childhood. And I'll just give you two other quick examples so you can see how maybe this is something that can work for you. Now, I am the child of Polish immigrants, and as such, I spoke Polish before I spoke English, although I learned English very quickly because the young mind is incredibly elastic, and it's easy to pick up. So one of my things is that I've always been very facile with languages and difficult pronunciations. Now, this is a little thing, but it has served me at some of the most remarkable times in my business career. You have no idea how much just making the effort to pronounce a difficult name correctly or getting it right on the first bounce, Yahtzee, it's kind of amazing when that happens, how that really changes the attitude of someone. Maybe it's a first meeting with a potential client or a customer. It really elevates their interest in that first meeting. So for me, that's part of my inventory. Another thing for me is that rejection rolls off my back very easily. As an actor, you hear no or you hear nothing almost every day, and you just get used to it. You can't take it personally. It doesn't mean that you're not good. It just means that you don't happen to be whatever the casting people had inside their heads that day. I once actually auditioned for a film role. It was the role of a Polish woman named Beata. Not only did I not get the part, I did not even get called back. And I asked my agent, I said, what happened? What exactly happened here? And as it turned out, I reminded the director too much of his ex-wife. There's nothing I could have done about that. So, on to the next thing. So you get the idea. Take your inventory, just go step back, down through your life and just write down all of your pros. You might be at a point when you're kind of stuck in one place. Maybe you think you can only do one thing or only be one thing. I guarantee you, if you take your inventory, you will find out that you have talents and gifts you may have forgotten about. Okay, the second step, work your muscles. And by that I mean continue to exercise what's already strong and then work on developing some of your weaker aspects. Now for me, I'm a writer, and so that means I have to write every day in one way, shape, or form. And something that I've done as part of my personal practice is that I've made the decision not to half-ass anything that I write. Not emails, not even texts. Now, this might be a colossal waste of time for somebody else, but for me, it's a discipline. It means something to make sure I'm exercising proper grammar and syntax even when I'm just communicating with a friend. It's me working my muscles. Now, this behavior, appropriately enough, began in earnest the first time I ever had to send an email to Jenny Butts. As some of you might know, Jenny is a sentence construction and punctuation dominatrix. I was quaking in my seat the first time I ever wrote an email to her because she really knows her stuff. And I know my stuff too, so that was kind of silly. But I realized that the only reason I was fearful is because I'd let myself get lazy and sloppy in my personal correspondence. So now, treating that with the same kind of vigilance and attention that I give my paid projects, I exercise those muscles every single time my hands hit the keyboard. Now, my weaker muscle, those are my technical skills. I am decidedly an analog woman in a digital world. I still do outlines and first drafts in pencil on a legal pad. It's just something that I'm used to. But I do understand that I've got to really take advantage of all the tools that are offered on my laptop, in my iPad, on my smartphone, social media. These are all things that I really have to learn how to master if I'm going to compete in the current business market. It's not a natural process for me, so I set a tiny little goal. It's kind of the equivalent of doing one sit-up a day. But I set that tiny little goal, and I try to practice it because I really want those technical muscles to get stronger. So that's working the muscles. Step 3, get your heart beating faster. And this is really the easiest one because this just involves surrounding yourself with things that really stimulate and excite you. Everybody's got that one thing that always makes them happy no matter what. You know, it just puts you in a great frame of mind and it gives you energy. That is your cardio. Spend a little time with that because it will put you in a place that promotes energy and creativity and confidence as well. Now, your cardio trigger might be a place. For me, it's New York City. I lived there for 11 years, and I felt like I owned the joint. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I have a great time when I go back. It always gives me a little resurgence of energy. And frankly, even just watching TV shows or movies that are set in New York or reading the New Yorker magazine, it always gives me a little energy boost. So that's my particular brand of cardio. If there's a place that puts you in that frame of mind, go there. Also, keep up with successful people that you admire. That's very, very helpful, especially if they are outliers who were not expected to do well. It's always fun to be cheering for the team, you know, that was the underdog. So if you track and support the work of somebody successful that you really admire and that has maybe forged a new path, this puts you in a terrific headspace to improve your own energy and your own chances of success. Last of all, stretch. And by stretching, I mean try new things in fields other than your particular field of business. Something maybe like learning a second language or trying a new food or trying a new game, just something different. You've got to dip your toe into some uncharted territory. Now, my little stretch exercise, and I'm embarrassed to say this, but I have a terrible sense of direction. I have no internal GPS whatsoever. So I tend to take the same route over and over again whenever I'm driving someplace because taking a different road, it's really a big thing for me. So what I try to do is I force myself to take new roads. And I do it because it scares me. And I do it because I can actually feel the synapses in my brain growing and connecting when I do that. And I do it because it gives me an absurd sense of accomplishment when I've actually taken a new road somewhere familiar, and I make it there, and I make it back home again. We all have areas in our life that we like to avoid, and that's because they're areas in which we do not excel. Identify that area in your life and go there. Stretch yourself toward greater agility. So these are the 4 simple steps that I've incorporated into my own daily life to practice agility. And for me, it's really made a very positive difference on being able to navigate all of the changes, the trials, the tribulations that are part and parcel of an ever-changing business atmosphere. Things change. No one really does the same thing anymore for 30-some-odd years and then retires and collects a pension. You're going to change companies. You're going to change positions. Maybe you're going to have a portfolio career and do several different things throughout your life. And hey, entrepreneurship is the new black. Things change. And you're going to need agility to stay in the game. There we go. Alan Watts, who is the author of The Way of Zen and who's considered the godfather of Zen in America, wrote, "The only way to make sense out of change is to plunge into it, move with it, and join in the dance." I will see you on the dance floor.